videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The program, we've got Fort Smith attorney Mr. Joey McCutcheon is back with us. Joey, thanks for being on the program.
Hey, Paul, good to be back. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Hey, can I get your comments on Senator Jake Files? I mean, this is ridiculous. I've been calling. I know I want to talk about FOIA, but I've been calling for his resignation for the last several months. And Governor Hutchinson, as well as the Arkansas GOP, are not calling for his resignation. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that Senator Files needs to resign. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Some of them are very obvious. The first problem that I have is that Senator Files is my senator, and he will not meet with me to discuss what's going on here, because I think he owes us answers. In all transparency, and that's part of the discussion we're going to have today, he owes us honesty and openness, and he will not discuss with me. For example, one of the things I want to discuss with him, Paul, it's not just the gift money, the $25,000 gift money that apparently went to his personal use, but I want to talk to him about the $80,000 that he received from David Norsworthy, who is a nursing home lobbyist in Little Rock, about 5 days after the nursing home lobby had a bill filed that would put a price tag on human life of $500,000. Is that a gift? Is that a loan? Because we know that Senator Files took another $30,000 loan about 6 months or so, or a year before that, from Bruce Hawkins, a $30,000. He called it a loan.
Yeah.
The perception is that that's a bribe. And that's serious. And so I think that the GOP needs to call on Senator Files to resign. I think it gives a bad name to other representatives, other senators. I think representatives need to call on him.
Absolutely.
Do the right thing and call on him to resign.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear you say that. My fear is, though, this is being orchestrated. Because, see, I have sources, and my sources tell me that Jake Files is going to resign, but he's going to do it when there will be no special election, so that State Representative Matt Pitch will still be able to run for that seat in 2018. Now, the issue with that is the fact that we've got a fiscal session that's coming up next year. And if he resigns, essentially the people of District 8, your people, the district that you're with, Joey, you guys are going to have no representation. And even if he doesn't resign, he doesn't need to be down there voting at this point. I mean, the amount of political leverage with his debts, the liens, the lawsuits, the $80,000 loan, the $30,000 loan, taking the $25,000 for personal use. I mean, this guy doesn't need to be voting on behalf of anybody.
No, and I've given Senator Files the benefit of the doubt for a long time, but it's past that now. Just the lack of sincerity of his most recent post, where he states that, this is old news. Well, it may be old news, but it's disgusting news. And I think leadership requires that I think Representative Matt Pitch ought to call for his resignation.
Yeah.
You know, Representative Pitch was recruiting candidates, and Representative Pitch announced for that Senate seat before the public even knew that Senator Files was not running again. So there's some insider ball play in there.
Yeah.
And so let's just do the right thing. But he's ineffective. He's a lame duck, and the people in my Senate district have no representation at this point because he's been told by his lawyers in a civil suit last week. I've read the deposition. His lawyer, Gunnar DeLay, who is the Republican county chairman, told him to take the fifth.
Yeah, why do you think that? Why do you think he took the...
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that liberty machine. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us. The number, as usual, 870-275-9799. I'm really excited about today's program. Aside from the news that we're going to dive into here in just a second, at the top of the next hour, we'll be speaking live in studio with Pastor Iverson Jackson, who is doing a he's giving a keynote speech today for the Arkansas State University Young Republicans at 7:30 this evening on the campus of A-State about one nation under God. Joining us for that conversation at the top of the next hour at 5:06, we will have in studio Secretary of State Mark Martin as well to kind of maybe expand on this topic, maybe just get a little preview on this idea, one nation under God. Love to hear what Pastor Iverson Jackson has to say, and love to give a platform to what's going to be talked about tonight at this ASU Republican event. Obviously sponsored by State Representative Dan Sullivan, who has been instrumental in bringing Iverson Jackson to Jonesboro this evening. So we're excited to do that at 5 o'clock coming up. At first, though, I guess first to kick things off, this was a story that I saw. I know many of you saw. It really lends itself to the corruption, the corrupt feeling that many of us are witnessing and seeing. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette reporting, Michael Wickline reporting back on the 21st, that the budget of Arkansas's tax overhaul task force tripled. It tripled. A lot of people don't realize this, but I'll reiterate it. If you are not on the task force, you are still allowed to show up and go to the meetings. So you can still show up and go to the meeting even if you're not on the task force for tax reform and relief. We're not going to get into relief, though, are we? And when you do that, you sign in, and if you live, I can't remember the exact mileage, but if you're it's a different scale depending how close you live to Little Rock. But if you're a certain amount of miles outside of Little Rock, so let's just say if you're from any one of the four corners, so if you're any one of the four quarters of Arkansas, you're going to get $150 a day for a per diem. So just for signing in. So when they have a meeting, any meeting, you can show up, you can sign in, and you get $150 essentially. And so we find out that whatever the budget was for the tax farce has now been tripled because they pay per diem and mileage. Okay? Now, 50 miles. So when you're 50 miles outside of Little Rock, I've just been told that that's the threshold. 50 miles outside Little Rock, and you get the real extra bonus. So $150,000 has now been okayed for per diem and for mileage. Michael Wickline reporting this. Okay. Now, of course, this is really funny because you got to keep up. There are so many legislative committees that have power and debate what's going to happen with your money and my money in the future while the full body is not in session. One of those is the tax farce. The other is the Arkansas Legislative Council, another council that whittles away the full 135-member body that represents all of us at the same time, whittles it away to something that's smaller than that. Easier to control. People who've been down there, they're familiar with the status quo. Some of them on there don't like the status quo, but inevitably what happens in this system is that people, they know how things are, and they're not going to rock the boat as much. Not to say that it can't happen, not to say that it's never happened, but for the most part, the status quo is intact by the people based on seniority who get on the Arkansas Legislative Council. Of course, it was a voice vote, Michael Wickline reports. Few lawmakers voiced their dissent. I'll tell you the one that did here in a minute, and you will not be surprised. He's a friend of the program. The council approved its policymaking committee's recommendation from Tuesday to increase to $150,000 the allocation of Bureau of Legislative Research funds for per diem and mileage for the Arkansas Tax Reform and Relief Legislative Task Farce. The allocation is for fiscal year 2018, which started in July. So they've had to triple their budget because there's so much interest. That's what they're going to say. Oh, there's so much interest in people. Let me just say this. If we're going to spend that kind of money, why not just have a full legislative body? Why not just, I'm serious. I mean, these guys get paid as full-time legislators now, and yet they're not down there full-time. Now, don't get me wrong. If they're down there full-time, they're just going to continue to pass laws in a lot of cases and screw things up. But, I mean, the alternative is the good old boy system gets protected. You have special legislators on special task forces. You have special legislators on legislative council. That's the way things have always been done. While the governor, he gets power all the time. He never loses his power. But the full 135-member legislature only has power at the beginning of every year in a general session or a fiscal session. In the fiscal session, they really don't have any power unless they have enough, people, a large majority to be able to vote on something other than something, budgetary. So who was the dissenting voice in covering this increase? Who was it? Any guesses? Joe, you got a guess on who the dissenting voice was on this? State Representative Josh Miller. Yes, the man, the invincible one, the bulletproof one who survived a primary challenge from Asa Hutchinson. That's right, Asa didn't like Josh Miller, didn't like the fact that he has a conservative voting record and didn't want to go along with the governor's agenda just because he's the governor. Asa found him a primary opponent, and last time, Josh Miller handily defeated him. And, let me just stop here. I know there's a lot of people who are upset in the establishment about the idea that Jan Morgan may, in fact, primary Governor Asa Hutchinson, and she's got her exploratory committee. She's making the rounds of county committees. Now Asa's trying to make his schedule align with her so they can be at the same events at the same time because he's really worried that she is a viable candidate, which is, I mean, that we could spend a long time talking about that. But let's just talk about this. People are outraged. some of them in the establishment, were you as outraged when Asa found a primary challenger for Josh Miller the last time? Were you as outraged when now we have Asa getting James Sturch to run against Senator Linda Collins Smith, one of the best conservatives? Were you as outraged when Asa apparently has found Dan Sullivan a primary opponent? That, by the way, many people don't even know who he is, so I mean, whatever. But, I mean, was the establishment as outraged when that was going on? Why should Asa expect anything different? Why should he expect special treatment if he's going to primary some of our most conservative people just because they're voting the platform and he doesn't like the platform and he resents I've got a feeling he resents the platform, by the way. Just because of that nobody can challenge Asa in a primary? I mean, who does he think he is? I'm telling you, they resent it. Back to Josh Miller. He dissented. He questioned why the task force needs more money. Isn't that interesting? Just a simple question. Hey, why do you need this money? You know, it's those people. Those are the ones who are bold. You know, who see past the hype, who see past the theatrics, who see past the, the bull. In Star Trek V, Joe, you've probably never seen Star Trek V. In Star Trek V, there's this entity, everybody thinks he's a god, and he wants the Enterprise. He needs a starship to get off the planet. And James T. Kirk, he steps forward and just asks a simple question. He says, what does God need with a starship? That's all all he says. He just asks a question, and that blows the whole thing. I mean, the guy, okay, clearly this guy's not a god. He's not omnipotent. He's evil. I mean, we just need leaders who are going to say, hey, what are we doing here? Why are we spending more money? Now, a Democrat, Senator Linda Chesterfield, she explained, that numerous lawmakers were not on the task force, but they attend the meetings anyway because, quote, we are dealing with tax relief for the state, and there seems to be a great interest in that subject. Let's just stop. We could have done all of this in January if we hadn't listened to Asa to form this stupid task force in the first place. Taxes are not complicated. Let me say that again. I know you want to think that they are, right, but taxes are not complicated. It's not. Matter of fact, it's the most debated issue. How we allow the government to take money from us is a pretty basic issue. Okay, it's been around since Article 1 of the Constitution was established, which established the legislative branch of Congress in D.C. and the federalism continued after that. This is not complicated. This has been debated. Do you agree with Karl Marx or do you agree with Milton Friedman? Okay, I mean, it's very simple. Which ideas do we like, right? We want to force everybody to throw all their money in a pot and divide it up, quote, equally, end quote? Or do we want to incentivize voluntary cooperation and free thinking, free ideas, a free market, what do we want to do? Do you recognize as government a hindrance to those things we want to do? I mean, they haven't even decided that, by the way. That's one of the reasons it is a farce. If you're even going to have this conversation, you have to set out clear metrics. And some of those metrics are, does government make things easier on business? And by making things easier on business or making things harder on business, are we talking about the things that government does that disincentivize businesses to grow and invest in their companies and create more jobs? Does government incentivize that right now, or does it hinder it? Have they even had that conversation to say, from these facts and these principles, we're moving forward? Now, those principles are in the platform of the Republican Party. But, I mean, you guys have raised our taxes. You've attempted to raise them even more. You've played a shell game. You've used our military veterans as political pawns for your campaign flyers. It's pretty ridiculous. Quote, we've already spent about half of what was already allocated, Senator Linda Chesterfield, Democrat from Little Rock, said. Lawmakers have been paid a total of $30,000 in per diem and mileage for attending the 16-member task force meeting since May. $30,000 since May. For example, the 11 task force members were paid for attending the July 11th meeting, while 26 non-members also were paid for attending that meeting, Bureau records show. Okay, so why don't we just have the full body down there making these decisions? There's clearly an interest. Now, yeah, are they down there to collect their money? The per diem rate for lawmakers who live more than 50 miles from the state capitol increased from $153 to $155 on October 1st. While the reduced per diem paid to those who live within 50 miles of the state capitol is $59. So showing up, if you're within 50 miles of Little Rock or outside that, you're going to get $155 for showing up for a meeting. Now, yeah, there are stories of some people signing in and then just leaving. There's no doubt about that. Does it go on? Yeah, here we go. Chesterfield told lawmakers, "We've got a choice regarding the proposal to increase the task force budget by $100,000. We can say to the General Assembly members who are not on the committee, don't come, don't find out what we're talking about. Or we can do as we did with the health reform task force and accommodate them by enlarging the budget," she said. Lawmakers who attended the legislature's health care overhaul task force meetings were being paid a total of $125,293.11 in fiscal year 2016 and then $29,708.70 in fiscal 2017, according to the BLR, which led State Representative Josh Miller to ask, quote, "Is there any rule against coming even if we don't get paid?" Chesterfield said. Quote, "There may not be a rule, but that certainly is not the practice. When you come from hundreds of miles, you kind of want to at least get paid for a meal," end quote. But I think each of us represents a constituency base that is directly impacted as to whether or not we will engage in tax reform, which seems to be the flavor of the month. And I think it is important that they have their voices heard because it is something that is just within the purview of the tax farce itself. So State Representative Josh Miller, he just says, well, why don't we just quit paying people for coming? I mean, they're already full-time legislators. They're already making a lot of money. Why do they got to make more? Why do they got to have $150 every time they walk into a meeting that they're not even a part of? There's a lot of different ways to look at this. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. We are exposing the truths about Little Rock that many people don't want you to know because they're afraid. The Republican Party establishment, the political class, the protectors of the status quo, they are aware of you. They are aware that you're listening. They're very worried. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Want to go back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Did you guys hear the news about Jeff Flake out of Arizona? This has got to make the establishment here in Arkansas even more nervous. Jeff Flake is out. He will not seek re-election. This from Breitbart News, Michelle Moons. Breitbart News executive chairman and former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon reacted to the news of Jeff Flake's impending retirement. He writes, the days of the establishment Republicans who oppose the People's America First agenda are numbered. This is pretty incredible to me. I didn't expect this. I mean, I knew he was down in the polls. Senator Jeff Flake has announced on Tuesday, today, that he will not run for re-election. A late August poll showed Flake primary challenger Dr. Kelly Ward, an Arizona state senator, ahead of Flake by double digits. The poll showed twice as many Arizona Republicans supporting Ward than Flake. During Donald Trump's presidential campaign, he is reported to have said he would consider spending $10 million to back a challenger for Flake. In August, Trump tweeted that it was great to see Ward running against Flake. Shortly after the news broke of his plans to retire, Flake took to the floor of the United States Senate to explain his decision to abandon a re-election bid, blaming the tone and political values Trump brought to Washington. Nothing like, bowing out because you can't hack it and then, I don't know, whining about it. I mean, it's just really saying, yeah, I know everyone disagrees with me, but they're all wrong and I'm right. Fellow senator from Arizona, John McCain, also took to the floor shortly after Flake on Tuesday spoke of seeing Flake stand up for what he believes in. McCain said, it is one of the great honors of life to have served alongside Flake, whom McCain called a man of integrity and honor, decency, and commitment to not only Arizona but the United States of America. In the wake of Flake's announcement, Kelly Ward, the challenger in Arizona, tweeted, Arizona voters are the big winner in Jeff Flake's decision not to seek re-election. They deserve a strong conservative in the Senate, Dr. Kelly Ward. Flake's announcement comes just a few days after conservative radio host Laura Ingraham and Breitbart News former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon campaigned for Ward in Phoenix. Bannon was one of the many conservatives that also backed Judge Roy Moore in Alabama last month against the establishment-backed Senator Luther Strange. Moore, of course, won. And just hours before Moore won that election in Alabama, Senator Bob Corker, Republican from Tennessee, announced he would not run for re-election. If there really is a growing insurgency against the Republican establishment in the Senate, and Steve Bannon has said not just in D.C. politics, we're talking about having candidates in every state, in even gubernatorial elections. if Jan Morgan does decide to run, again, what are the odds that Steve Bannon comes to Arkansas? Certainly something to consider or anticipate. You decide. Back in just a moment.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
A civil case took the Fifth Amendment.
Because he knew he was going to get asked questions that would incriminate him. And is my guess. But I think that in alone is very revealing that he's taken the Fifth Amendment in a civil suit.
It's really strange. Very, very strange. We're talking with Joey McCutcheon. He's an attorney in Fort Smith. And, you know, with all the Jake Files fallout, Joey here is a Freedom of Information Act defender and buff, and he's always... you're advocating for transparency, and I really appreciate that. And I hear that you've now got another suit with the city of Fort Smith. Is this the second one? And tell us more about this. It has to do with emails, right?
Yeah, we had a transparency suit against the Fort Smith School Board, which Judge Tabor in early June 13th, granted a summary judgment in our favor, stating that the secret emails that the school board was in which they elected their slate of officers was a violation of FOIA. And then shortly after that, I find that the city, I actually FOIA'd other documents, and I found a series of documents on this issue involving the Civil Service Commission in Fort Smith, in which our city board of directors did exactly the same thing. They're discussing public business that's likely to come before the city board on a private email chain, on a secret email chain, and in my opinion, a clear violation of FOIA, just like Judge Tabor found in the last case. To save the taxpayers' money, I sent them a settlement agreement, and I gave them time. Their lawyer called, wanted additional time. I gave them the additional time. But in the meantime, I was like, I wonder if they're discussing this settlement agreement through secret email. So I FOIA the document. Lo and behold, the exact same thing occurred. And in fact, one of the emails reads, Director Law said, so to all other than car.
The Paul Harrell Program.
About our Patreon subscriptions, we have one of our Conduit Media Insiders, Mark, on Facebook, who's saying that the PHP the Conduit Insiders get asked their opinions, help select topics and guests, and most importantly, I get to use the royal we when I reference the show. You're exactly right, Mark. We appreciate you taking ownership in that and your contribution and becoming a Conduit Media Insider over at our Patreon page. It's been a lot of fun interacting, and I'll tell you, it's growing, and I know a lot of people want to support the program. We sent out our interview requests, and we're working on those of you who are Paul Harrell program producer level and up, who get to select the topics and select the guests that we are going to interview, and we're working on it. I did get one vote for Jake Files, though, and haven't heard anything back. By the way, there's a terrible rumor going around about Jake Files. This is actually a rumor he's going to love, by the way. There's a rumor going around, and it's just a rumor, and I have no idea how the validity of it. So you know that Jake Files has been mentioned in a sworn FBI affidavit under penalty of perjury. This affidavit was to secure a search warrant for his electronic devices, and he's being accused in that affidavit of wire fraud, among other things. And we've talked about this, but is stealing taxpayer money and enriching himself directly. There's a rumor out there, and this is just a rumor, but the FBI affidavit is what it is. Jake Files should be indicted. Where's the indictment? I don't know. The rumor is that Jake Files is so well connected that if he's indicted and makes a deal, he could potentially bring down everybody in the entire state. I mean, that's anybody, from Fayetteville to Fort Smith to Little Rock to East Arkansas. That's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. I definitely know what my sources have told me about the amount of people who are supposed to get indicted. Then there's another vicious rumor. And I don't know, this is more of just people who are, you talk about, did anybody read Mark Pryor's, by the way, former Senator Pryor may he may run for governor. But did anybody read his piece, Mark Pryor, talking about how voters are just sick of this, voters are disenfranchised, or whatever the verbiage he used? You know what voters are really sick of, and that's what leads to this next rumor I'm going to tell you about? Voters are sick of the politicians and political class winning at our expense. That's what we're sick of. And so this next rumor comes from a standpoint of this: that the political class will find a way to win, even though Jake Files is mentioned in this affidavit, even though Micah Niels pled guilty and John Woods has been indicted. People are very worried, and I'm just going to be honest with you, that Governor Asa Hutchinson, who used to work high up in the federal government, people are worried that these indictments are going to go away, that this prosecution will never happen, because of what it would mean for the political class here. Now, I don't know if that's the case. And look, I don't think that's true. I really don't. I don't think that's true. I think people are worried about that happening for the sole purpose of the people always losing and the political class always winning, and they just can't imagine. Now, first of all, I don't know how we would ever be able to go on and take the government or the justice system seriously after that FBI affidavit has been made public and nothing ever happens to Jake Files. There's never any prosecution. There's never anything. I don't see how that can be allowed to stand, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You know? I mean, go back to the Clintons. Go back to there is an indictment that it's been sealed, but there's a whitewater indictment that nobody's ever seen. Now, in this case, we saw this affidavit, but we don't. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's an indictment and somebody's going to pump the brakes. I have no idea. The people are getting antsy. The people are getting skeptical. The people, look, the city of Fort Smith, say what you want to about their internal audit department. The city of Fort Smith looks, they got egg on their face. They trusted Jake Files. Jake Files was too. Whatever the case may be, at the end of that internal audit report that we broke last week, they are looking to the FBI for justice. They are saying the FBI is now investigating Jake Files. Let them do their job. Now, if I were in charge of the city of Fort Smith, I would have them continue investigating because of this very thing. You never know. Somebody on high could put the brakes on this. There are people worried that Governor Hutchinson doesn't want to see Jake Files indicted. There's a lot of people that don't. And maybe that's why nobody will formally ask him to resign. Maybe that's why the Arkansas Republican Party will not formally ask for Jake Files' resignation. Governor Asa Hutchinson will not publicly or formally ask for privately either, ask for Jake Files' resignation, as far as I know. Of course, how am I going to know that? But still, it doesn't matter what they talk about that nobody knows about, nobody can hear. Jake Files should have already resigned. It's really two separate issues. Is he going to be indicted, and why hasn't the Arkansas Republican Party asked him to resign? The culture of corruption that is allowed to exist, it only hurts our confidence in our own government. And I hope the indictments that are supposed to be coming, it's clear the FBI's done the work. Just look at that one affidavit. Look at the affidavit. And you'd be amazed how many people in positions of power still haven't read the thing. It's like they don't want to acknowledge it exists. It is very conclusive. They executed a search warrant because of that affidavit. They have bank accounts. They have exact check amounts. They have testimony from Deanna Gonzalez. They have testimony from contractors who said that they never wrote the bids that Jake Files submitted on their behalf, or Jake Files made look like they said that's not even what our bids look like. We didn't ask for this government money. They have testimony. They have all this stuff. He stole from us. He stole from the taxpayer. What is going on? Where are the rest of the people who are connected with this? We got a lot of unanswered questions. We really do. We have Mark on Facebook writing that if Jake Files has been turned into an FBI CI, I guess is that some sort of informant? They better clean house with his info. Okay, so if they're gonna allow him to maybe plea or something like that, hopefully the information that he has is good enough to really expose the corruption. Massive amounts of corruption going on. All right. All right, let's talk about what the media never tells you. Media doesn't tell you. We've been talking a lot about this. I need to really sit down and make conceptualize this in a better way. The media doesn't tell you, or at least it takes it's got to be real bad for the media to report that the government has an incentive to not look out for the people's interest. They always give them the benefit of the doubt when it's social programs or bureaucracies or regulatory agencies. I'm not talking about that. I mean, that's a whole other issue that I could get into because most of that stuff's not about public safety anymore. I'm talking about when there's something big that happens and the news media really just reports what the government and government officials say about what happens, but they don't tell you the potential incentives that call into question the motives and the genuineness of the comments of these government officials. Case in point, last week, Donald Trump decides to get rid of the subsidies that are bailing out the insurance companies under Obamacare. This headline in front of me, Andy Davis, it does talk about how Congressman Rick Crawford, Congressman French Hill, and Asa are open to the idea, supporting the idea of restoring the funding to the health insurance subsidy President Trump ended this past week. There's several quotes in here about this, right? It says, let's see here. I'm going to skip the congressman's comments. I mean, you can read them for yourself. They got French Hill. They have Rick Crawford. It says that Bruce Westerman wasn't reached for comment. I want to stick to the ASA stuff here for a second. Among other members of the state's Republican delegation, you see Tom Cotton and John Bozeman said they haven't even read the proposal. So there's a proposal out there to undo what Donald Trump did. Okay? There's a proposal out there to undo what Donald Trump did. And then, of course, it says that Governor Hutchinson, also a Republican, said at the Delta Caucus meeting that he supports the legislation. He noted the loss of the subsidies will result in double-digit premium increases for about 4,000 Arkansans who are enrolled in plans on the state's insurance exchange and don't qualify for federal assistance to help with the cost. Now, somebody like me that believes that Asa does not like Trump, this is good. This is going to be good for him because this is he can see they're going to hate Trump now, right? They're going to hate Trump now. And but what they are doing are the normal political calculations that, folks, I'll admit it, I had no idea. Donald Trump went against the grain of in the rule book of everything. He just refuses to dance to any conventional thought, or especially with the mainstream media, the beat they try to set, he refuses to dance to it. I'm just saying, this is predictable. That's all I'm saying. This is predictable to see these people. Oh, no. People hate Obamacare. That's what you forget. People hate Obamacare, and they can't afford it, right? And they're really upset that you guys dropped the ball. And if they look at what Asa did, going on MSNBC, trashing Donald Trump's plan, they'd really be upset. The more of them, if more knew that. Okay, this piece goes on. The subsidies that Trump ended last week. Listen to this. The subsidies that Trump ended last week, known as cost-sharing reduction payments, are one of two types of assistance provided under the Affordable Care Act. Okay, so bear with me. The first one is, right, cost-sharing reduction payments. These are the ones that go to the insurance companies. Then the second part are the tax credit subsidies that lower premiums, and they do that based on your income level. Okay, so that's the second one. The cost-sharing, the one that Donald Trump ended, the reimbursements for insurance for increasing the amount of coverage provided through the so-called silver level plans to consumers with incomes below 250% of the poverty level. Trump stopped payments on October 12th after Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, look, I agree with what the court said about this, that this is not a legal thing for you to do. In response, Arkansas Insurance Commissioner Alan Kerr last week allowed insurers to increase their rates for their exchange plans by double-digit amounts starting in 2018. So in response to what Donald Trump did, Asa allows the insurers to increase your rates 21%. And I believe many of you have gotten letters. By the way, if you've gotten letters from Blue Cross Blue Shield, send them to me. I want to see them. I'll keep your information, redacted. But, I mean, feel free to send them to me. You can text them at 870-275-9799. You can post on Facebook, whatever you want to do. Okay? So, in response, okay, insurers, you can raise your rates. The tax credit subsidies, okay, which are tied to the size of a plan's premium, are expected to shield many consumers from those increases. Those who don't qualify for the state credits are enrolled in silver plans on the exchange and will pay more unless they switch to other types of plans. Okay, let's break from that article and let's go to an earlier article, which was done on the 18th, I believe. Okay. Governor Asa Hutchinson said Tuesday that President Donald Trump's decision to end a subsidy for insurance companies won't increase the cost of the state's expanded Medicaid program, known as Arkansas Works, but will hurt 4,000 people who are unsubsidized on unsubsidized plans. Now, this is interesting. First of all, there's no way that Asa can know this, and later on in this article, he says that this could affect Medicaid expansion, that initially he thought it was going to affect Medicaid expansion. Let me tell you something. Premiums are going up, okay? They're going to go up everywhere now, and that does affect Medicaid expansion because we can't afford this in the first place. Okay? Even if their cost projections would have been accurate, we still can't afford this mess. Okay? Asa critical. Donald Trump's strategy appears to be just repeal it without a solution, and that's what I've never said is a good policy solution. Again, this is all predictable. This is all typical. This is what a typical politician would say. I'm just telling you, I'm not It may be the right thing to do, trying to play on, the pain point politics of a plan that kicked a bunch of people off their insurance in the first place and made it unaffordable for working Arkansans. Maybe it's going to work. Premiums are going up. Something tells me these people just can't. They've operated in a political bubble for so long. They have somebody who's operating outside of it, and they don't know how to compete. I mean, it's the difference between FBS and Division III. That's what we're dealing with here, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I could be wrong. These guys are just, they don't understand what's happening. They don't get it. Now, listen to this part. To compensate for the loss of those payments, Arkansas Insurance Commissioner Alan Kerr on Friday allowed insurers to increase their rates for the exchange plans by double-digit amounts. Although Arkansas uses Medicaid funds to buy coverage in those plans for most of the people covered, Arkansas Works, the premium increases won't raise the amount the state pays for those plans, Hutchinson said. Okay, well, the jury's out on that. There's just no way I believe that. That's because Arkansas will reduce the amount it pays for its own version of the cost-sharing reduction payments by the amount needed to offset the premium increases. So let's stop here for a second. Donald Trump says no more payments, and then ASA says that Arkansas will reduce the amount it pays. Quote, my initial reaction is that this could undermine Arkansas Works, but upon further study over the weekend, it doesn't. That's because ASA has made this decision to reduce the amount it pays for its own version of cost-sharing reduction payments. Remember, there are two parts. There's what Trump ended, and then there's the other part. Okay, that's what we're talking about. The tax credit subsidies are tied to the prices of silver plan premiums, meaning the increased rates approved by Kerr will result in larger subsidies for many consumers with incomes below 400% of the poverty level. Those larger subsidies will offset the increase in premiums for those consumers. But Hutchinson said premium increases will affect people who are enrolled in silver plans and don't qualify for the tax credits of Medicaid. Again, he said about 4,000 people. Now, with all of this pain point politics, we're running out of time here, but I want to get to the point because this is what I'm saying is the media does not report on the incentives that government has that are not in your interest. In 1989, there's been a tax on the books. It is a premium tax on insurance companies, meaning whatever an insurance premium is, the state of Arkansas gets to charge the insurance company a tax on it. 1989, quote, for the privilege of transacting business in the state. The media fails at this miserably. They fail to show you that Asa Hutchinson, who is presiding over a budget crisis in Arkansas, I believe so, that is hidden, okay, that Asa Hutchinson, ladies and gentlemen, and his bloated government get more money by increasing the premiums, by allowing the insurance commissioner to allow Blue Cross Blue Shield to increase your premiums 21%. That is now a larger amount of money that they're going to get from taxing Blue Cross Blue Shield, which, by the way, passes that cost on to the consumer. It is a 2.5% premium tax. So when the premiums go up, that 2.5% is now bigger. It is now more money. And it is insane that the Arkansas Democrat Gazette and other media outlets will not tell you that the incentive here, the game here, is that Asa doesn't care if your premiums go up. He's in a budget crisis, and he's got to have this money. That's the truth. We keep increasing spending, and he had to cut money from the budget last year. And notice, no, this isn't going to affect Arkansas Works. Well, maybe it's not going to affect Arkansas Works because now you're going to get a 2.5% of a 21% increase. Not to mention the rest of it. You know, that could have something to do with all of this, and you just need to realize that they do a lousy job of reporting the incentives the government has. The sympathy here is misplaced, in my opinion. And I don't know. They don't say it. I mean, it's the same thing as this. Minimum wage. Minimum wage. I want the minimum wage. I want to increase the minimum wage, they say. You know what the government never says? That payroll taxes now increase. If people are now being forced to pay their employees a higher wage, well, the percent of tax now is the same, but the amount of tax goes up. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
So Dennis on Facebook is writing, I can tell you for a fact that some of the swamp occupants in Fort Smith are shaking in their boots as to what is going to come out of this Jake Files deal. Heads are going to roll. That's somebody in the know. We'll see what happens. What else do we have? This is interesting. 10 years ago, that's reminds me of Johnny Cash song. See, 10 years ago. Which one is that? That's the Long Black Veil. That's what it is. 10 years ago, my self-pay Blue Cross Blue Shield was approximately $300. Started upward last year, was $644. Just got notification from Blue Cross Blue Shield next year will be $787. Thank you, Obama/ASA Care. Wow. Hey, Bruce, I really apologize for that. And you know what? Somebody's going to I mean, you say what you want to about cutting the subsidies. Somebody's got to stop this madness and stop us on the path to socialized health care.
Does the government not realize that when they step in and start influencing things, prices go up? Insurance has gone up since they started influencing things. College has gone up since they started offering
everybody
loans
qualifies
and stuff
for
like
a
that.
loan, yeah, guaranteed
Exactly.
loan, yeah. They have no incentive to keep costs down because they don't have customers. They have a captive audience, and they don't have to care about. And if you're not directly buying it, you don't. The other people don't care about cost, and then they don't care about quality. I mean, because it's not close to you. You know, it's just all about incentives and, like, how do we incentivize the right kind of behavior? And giving the government control of your health care is the worst idea. Number one, your health is you, and it's like the most important thing to your existence. But we got one more hour. We're going to be back with Secretary of State Mark Martin and Pastor Iverson Jackson in studio.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Carl, he's the city administrator. Close your eyes. And to Carl, I do not want to settle or admit guilt. I mean, he's telling... In effect, he knows he's violating FOIA, so he's telling the other city directors to close their eyes. Wow. And then we have another city director in his boat, Mike Lorenz. He says, "I'm simply providing my opinion in this matter, so feel free to stop reading at this point and delete this email if you do not want to see my opinion." I mean, that's just thumbing your nose at the Freedom of Information Act. Now, they both go on to say that they're tired of Joey McCutcheon and they don't want to be my advertising firm. I don't want them to be my advertising firm either. I just want them to do their business in board meetings and not in secret emails.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, and yet I bet there are, I know there are city officials listening to this program right now all across the state that probably are thinking to themselves, "Uh-oh, I bet this is happening everywhere, Joey."
It is. I'm certain that it's happening across the state. I just think that there's no accountability, and which brings us to another point: what happened in the Republican legislature? I mean, Winthrop Rockefeller, who was the Republican government in a Democratic legislature, in 1967 passed the FOIA law, and we had a group of Republicans in this last legislative session who wanted to turn our FOIA law, gut it from the strongest in the country, which would, in one fell swoop, which would have made it the weakest in the country, due to an exception whereby they would create a attorney privilege exception. What would have happened is they would have included their lawyer in a CC, and they would have claimed attorney-client privilege, and we would never get documents. We would never get documents again, Paul.
I know.
And it's scary. It's scary what's happening in a Republican legislature. I mean, I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative, and I just don't get it. You know, that's the only way. That's one of the ways that we hold government accountable.
Mm-hmm.
The other way is the right to trial by jury, as you know I'm also passionate about.
Absolutely.
And not only do they want to gut FOIA, which holds politicians and government accountable, they want to gut our Constitution, our right to trial by jury also. And I just don't get it. I mean, we're a party, that's one of our premises, that's one of our foundations as conservatives, is accountability. And we're trying to gut it at every level.
Let me ask you this, Joey, because the Family Council scored that bill, they were against it, and the Republican establishment, they didn't get good scores on the Family Council scorecard. I mean, they are literally in some cases dizzy from talking bad about it, talking bad about Family Council Now, which is a socially conservative group, and we have the Senate Majority Leader Jim Hendren now calling, because of that scorecard and others, he's now wanting these organizations to have to disclose their donors, which is really frightening to me. Again, back to this whole transparency thing. Transparency's for government, privacy's for citizens. They don't seem to get this. And I'm wondering, in the context of all of this, if you might give us maybe an update on your suing Ecclesia College, if there's an update on that, because specifically with Jake Files, I mean, this is another example of general improvement funds being such a temptation and really easy for them to enrich themselves on the public's back. And, of course, I feel like the Ecclesia situation with John Woods and Mike and Neal and everything else, that involved general improvement funds, a little bit more clever laundering scheme than what Jake Files was doing. But can you give us an update on anything that's going on with that?
I can, and I'm glad you brought up Family Council. Yeah, Republicans, they understand that Jerry Cox with the Family Council, he is the conscience of the Christian community.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you so much. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul. You've found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine here. For those of you watching on Facebook Live and over at paulharrell.com, we got kind of a 3-person split screen in here. I want to welcome back to the studio. We have Secretary of State Mark Martin is with us. Mark, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. And we have Pastor Iverson Jackson is with us, who's going to be at the Arkansas State University Student Union giving the keynote speech for the Arkansas State Young Republicans. Iverson, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
Really glad that you could be here. Let's start with you.
Okay.
The speech here, this is 7:30 tonight, and Arkansas State University Young Republicans, as well as State Representative Dan Sullivan, bringing you in. And the topic is One Nation Under God. Tell us a little bit about that.
One Nation Under God, that's that part, One Nation Under God, that's what we are. That's what our founders envisioned when you look at the Declaration of Independence, when they talk about we owe these truths to be self-evident, that, that we are endowed by our Creator. So they acknowledge that we are a creator. And then they go on to tell us that our Creator gives us certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Among them, we have many more than that, but those are the ones that they named. Mm-hmm. And so those only come when you're one nation under God. You look at any nation that disavows God, they don't have the liberty that we have, and that's why we have the illegal immigration problem that we have. People are not fighting to get out of America. They're fighting to get in America because this is where freedom lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And there actually is, a lot of people don't realize this in today's day and age, but, the idea of founding a country, recognizing the existence of a higher power.
Right.
You look at totalitarian states, and they are the higher power. They don't recognize that. So it's kind of about establishing the country in humility,
absolutely,
versus saying we have it all figured out. So there's a theology there about the Creator.
Right. This is what guided our founders. And I know you'll have people say, well, you had founders that didn't even believe in God, or they were deists and so forth and so on. That does not mean that they did not understand and agree with the principles of liberty that are found in the Holy Scriptures, and that's where people are missing it. They're missing, like for instance with Thomas Jefferson. When you look at his monument in Washington D.C., I've been there many times, and you'll see statements that he made about God, and you would think this man is a Pentecostal, and here people are saying that he wasn't, that he didn't believe in God. Well, that's about as far from the truth as you can get. He read his Bible, he knew what the Bible says, and he understood that these liberties that we enjoy today, the few that are left, only come from God and not from man. And if something comes from God, then no man can take it away from you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I want to turn now to Secretary of State Mark Martin. So Mark, what brings you here to this neck of the woods for this event tonight?
I was just invited up by my friend Dan Sullivan, and I figured I'd come up and show some support for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, one nation under God, that's something that I think a lot of people here in Arkansas, it really resonates with. Yes. And you see what the state of the country is now, and there's no question that we're kind of experiencing what looks like to be a slow moral decay. Talk about that a little bit.
Well,
or your thoughts on that?
One of the things that I would actually start with is whether or not we recognize it, or any country recognizes it or not, we're under God. We're either under God's judgment or we're under His blessing. Whether or not we want to recognize His sovereignty in the matter or not, that's really the starting point. I'm reminded of a quote by Abraham Kuyper I'd like to read to you. He says, "There's not 1 square inch of the whole domain of human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine." What's he talking about whenever he's developing these ideas? Well, the overall idea that is going on here is everything that's going on is under God's authority. How does He then delegate His authority in the world? And God first delegates who has more authority over you than anyone else. Ultimately, everybody would say God. But then, you move away from God, and then you're talking about the authority that an individual has over his own self-discipline. Now, Kuyper looked at things from spheres going out from oneself. As you go farther and farther from oneself, your personal authority diminishes, and you get a situation where more and more things are delegated to God to take care of. You hear some of the Austrian economists call it the invisible hand. Some people call it providence or whatever. So when we begin to talk about ultimately where we're at, some things may come and go. We may not be one nation. We may not be a nation at all. But one thing that we will be is under God.
Yeah, that's very well said. And you just think about where the state does come in. You talk about delegating authority. Mm-hmm. That's certainly a part, of the whole situation. Right. You have Paul in the New Testament saying, "Hey, we hope that we are able under the state to go about the gospel in peace."
Right.
So there is certainly evidence out there of
absolutely
where it's easier. When you're freer, things are a lot easier. Versus the totalitarian history that we have in the 20th century alone.
Well, and that's what's unique about this country is when we begin to look at the delegation of authority from that perspective, we see that it's centered on individuals. Every individual is endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. What we see here is a biblical pattern for government taking shape. Whether or not you believe in a creator or nature, I think it's evident in nature even that individual rights are what are supreme, because the individual is the one that's delegated the most authority to supervise himself. And of course, what's supervising ourselves? That's taking responsibility, right? So the pattern that the founders put together, whether or not they recognize it as a creator or as natural law, it's what's naturally the order of things, and self-government is the first order. And when you say the smallest form of self-government is individual.
That's correct.
So what you were pointing out there is a very, very deep theological concept.
Yeah.
So we're talking with Secretary of State Mark Martin and Pastor Iverson Jackson. Iverson is going to be at Arkansas State University tonight with the ASU Young College Republicans, giving this talk about one nation under God. It's very exciting. So tell us a little bit about. I mean, if you can, if you go all the way back to the founding and you go to what all of the sermons that were preached up and down the colonies, beforehand. It had a lot to do with what we're talking about. Being an individual before a holy God, being responsible. That's something. And then all of a sudden you start to think, well, if everybody is equal under God, then how come there's a royal bloodline that's somehow more special than everybody else?
Yeah. Go back to the Constitution, what you were talking about, and the connection with one nation under God. What our Constitution really is a collection of sermon topics. When you go through it and look at it, it's a collection of sermon topics that were preached up and down the colonies, as you stated earlier, up and down the colonies, that our founders just start putting these things together because our government, in Romans it tells us that governments are ordained by God, God being the higher power. So he delegates to man governments, but those governments are also to be under the auspices of God, and that makes it fair for everyone. That's how Thomas Jefferson came up with what he did. Let's think about this. I can say this is what's true. You can say, no, this is what's true. So there has to be an objective truth. We call that absolute truth. And this is what you get when you're under God. The truth does not have any friends, but it makes a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
Okay? So you can be a truth of the friend, but the truth is not going to try to be your friend. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's what we had. Remember, that when we were growing up, we heard the term the golden rule. Well, where did that come out of? That came right out of the scripture, when Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. That's an objective truth. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live, what color you are. So all these things come when you're under God. So you have to maintain that. That's what makes this nation so great, this ideal. And the aligning of truths, when, people talk about the founders and, owning slaves and so forth and so on like that. But the very words that they wrote, the truth, had to line up with the truth, and eventually the truth caught up with this nation, and we've, that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about, the Civil War. So all these things began to unfold because it's part of the truth. And as Jesus said in Matthew 5:6, if you hunger and thirst after righteousness, you shall be filled. In other words, if you are a truth seeker, the truth will eventually come forward. And so our founders understood that, and that one nation under God is what makes everything fair and equal for every person. Now, I love what Mark was talking about, the personal freedoms. There's nothing like personal freedom. It's remember the parable that Jesus told about the talents. He gave 1 5, 1 2, and 1 1. And each had an opportunity to do, according to their own ability, whatever they desired to do with those talents. That's what personal freedom is. If I want to become something special in life, then I have the right when a nation is under God, to be that. And if I want to just stand on the side of the road and hold a sign, well, I also have the freedom to do that. You can only get that when you're under God. We're not in a caste system where you have to be what the government tells you want to be. So this is what's so powerful, one nation under God.
So we're going to be back here in just a moment with Secretary of State Mark Martin and Pastor Iverson Jackson. I have a few more questions. One of them has to do with, and this is just my own personal kind of thing that I've come up with, or thoughts that I've had about the state of the country today, and how the younger generation is able to recognize injustice. They just don't know what to do about it. So we're going to be back in just a minute, folks. Don't go anywhere. The Liberty Machine rolls on next. Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock.
Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk Radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Joe, I'm just saying I really admire you. I'm having to produce my own show, and it's not easy. So I'm just letting you know, thank you for everything, Joe, our board up. I'm in the command center post because this is where our third mic is. All right, joining us now, we've got Secretary of State Mark Martin, who's back with us. Mark, thank you for being on the show, sir.
Thanks a lot.
And also we have Pastor Iverson Jackson. Now, he's going to be at this event, One Nation Under God. The college Republicans at A-State are hosting him. Also, the Arkansas Family Council Director, Jerry Cox, will be there. So that's going to be fun. Admission is free. It's tonight at 7:30 at Arkansas State University on the third floor of the Student Union. Seating is limited, but come one, come all right now. I want to talk a little bit about Iverson Jackson. He is the senior pastor of Zoe Bible Church in Little Rock. You received your bachelor's in business administration in 1985 from Southern Arkansas University and a master's degree in public administration from Webster University. And you're also retired as a lieutenant colonel in the military. So certainly thank you for your service. Yes, tell us about how you wound up at Zoe Bible Church.
At Zoe Bible Church?
Yeah, Zoe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Zoe.
My
Well, it's a Greek word which means life.
Okay.
So it looks like it's pronounced Zoe.
I was the whole Ecclesia college scandal. I've been pronouncing Ecclesia wrong for a long time, and somebody finally was like, "You're saying it wrong. This means church. You need to know how to say this word." Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Zoe Bible Church is the church that my wife and I founded in 1997, and so that's how we wind up there because we started the church there. So
good.
We just love what God has called us to do there.
Okay, so today in society, you mentioned a lot of people's problem. Look. You mentioned people what they say about the founders owning slaves and everything, and kind of using that to make basically kind of discount everything that we have here today that might be good. And as I look, across scriptures and Bibles, you see God using non-perfect men, broken men.
Those are the only ones in the Bible,
yeah, exactly.
except for one.
Except for one, right?
Except for one.
I mean, you look at some of our best guys.
Right.
You look at David. I mean, he's an adulterer, a murderer.
Yep.
I mean, bad stuff.
Can't control his children.
Yeah, exactly. And so
and this is lost on our generation, where they look back in America and they see all that we have today, and they can recognize injustice. They can recognize slavery, okay? Right. They can recognize an injustice like, even if we take all the history books that the liberals write about, Columbus and everything that happened, and they can't reconcile it, though. Right. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I really think this is the problem, is they can recognize injustice. And what they're really seeking is the perfect approval of a holy God, in my opinion. Yeah. But they're trying to right the wrongs of history by editing it, getting rid of statues, in an effort to reconcile themselves. Feel free to jump in.
Going back to the founders, again, our school systems have failed our students. For the most part, our public school systems have failed them. Because if you understand history in the context of what we're talking about, the United States of America, when I talk to people and I say, well, how long was slavery in America? A lot of times people say 400 years or 200, 300 years. I said, no, it was in America. In the United States of America for only 87 years. Because prior to that, there was no United States of America prior to 1776. There was no United States of America. There was an America, but not United States of America. And as part of the British crown, the colonies, they were forced to have slaves. Now, when I say forced, I don't mean they just brought slaves that you had to have them. But you could not, by British law, free your slaves. So George Washington wanted to free his slaves. Thomas Jefferson wanted to free his slaves. But they were not allowed to free their slaves by British law. One of the most ardent supporters of the abolition of abolishing slavery in the United States was Thomas Jefferson. And these are facts that cannot, they're just a part of history. But if you only look surface deep, then you'll only see Thomas Jefferson as slaveholder. And with respect to our young people, and, they're only hearing one part of the story. Because, if you listen to what we call the major networks, you're just going to hear all the negative about the United States of America, which is ironic because in this country, this is the only country they can say what they want to say because of the First Amendment. So those very founding fathers that they are denigrating are the reason they have the freedom to say what they're saying about them. So our young people just need to hear the truth. And then when you have the truth, then you can make a decision. And that's what we're going to present tonight. It's the truth. So we want people to come out and hear that truth. And if our young people hear the truth, it's never failed anywhere I've been, just telling people the truth and then let them go with that. Let them wrestle with their conscience against the truth.
Yeah, that's a great concept. Secretary of State Mark Martin, what are your thoughts on what is young people wanting to edit history to try to reconcile an injustice, but the real answer they're just missing?
Well, in a lot of ways they're missing kind of some of the history because it's not being presented to them. But in other ways, I think that maybe the millennials are recognizing something that we've lost along the way that you were pointing to, is that because of social media, and we know more and more about the personal lives of everybody, that we are always voting for the lesser of evils. I mean, even when I'm on the ballot, I'll just admit, you're not voting for the greater good. You're voting for the guy that's less bad. And by God's grace, hopefully you do pick the one that's that way. That's right, but Mark, probably my heart's no better than the next guy. So I think that maybe our millennials and our younger people are starting to see that we're all flawed human beings. The next hurdle and that's a great thing. The next thing for our young people to get over is a flawed human being pointing to the truth and proclaiming the truth, even when his life doesn't measure up, doesn't make him a hypocrite. It makes him someone that aspires to be better. And maybe if our young people can, now that they recognize that we're all fallen, and we're not going to measure up. Now we need to get them to recognize, to take that next step, that you're not a hypocrite for proclaiming the truth that you can't necessarily live up to. So maybe there's some hope there, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's a lot more. You guys are a lot more optimistic than I am. Maybe it's because I'm one of these bitter guys because they claim that I'm supposedly a millennial, and no, I'm not. I'm an Oregon Trail generation. I'm different. Well, I certainly appreciate it. We're about out of time for this segment, and I know I would like to come back from break. If we can do one more with you, Iverson, and we're going to bring in Hannah Webb, who's the Arkansas State University College Republican president. Is that what it is?
Chair? Okay, chair, president. Anyway, she's the leader of them. And so I want us to do one little quick segment. When we come back with that, folks, Mark, it's great to have you in the studio again. Yes, sir. And Iverson will be right back with you. Folks, don't go anywhere. It is the Paul Harrell program. We're talking about this weird, strange concept, one nation under God, back in just a moment.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
And when he gives these legislators a C, for example, when they vote to pass out SJR 8, the tort reform bill, Jerry Cox gave them a C, some of them a C, because Jerry understands that we've got to value life both in the womb. We've got to value the life of a child. We've got to value the life of a stay-at-home mom. We've got to value the life of folks in the nursing home. And so, I mean, I hear that they're threatening Jerry Cox. Oh, we need a new family council. Oh, find somebody else to bring your bills. That's just not right.
It's petty.
And,
I thought, yeah, and that you're exactly right. I've heard the same thing, and it's a shame that their principles are, that they were just carrying pro-life bills for accolades and for getting good scores. Now that they haven't gotten good scores because of how they voted, and because of the interest of a private organization just telling the people what their interests are and how people voted, is really shameful, and it really shows that a lot of these people are essentially, they've got thin skin, and it's like high school never ended for some of these people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, Rose Mims of Arkansas Right to Life, same type of threats, because Rose is against SJR 8, which would put a price tag on the value of human life. On to Ecclesia. I know you want to talk about that. We are in the process of asking the court to set that for a hearing. When you take $700,000 of taxpayer money, a private college, now they've claimed in their pleadings that they're actually a church and not a college, which was beyond me. But we're asking. This is the open records part. They don't want to give us the records. And you got to ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard to keep these records sealed after they take $700,000 of taxpayer money from, again, some of the same conservative senators? For example, Senator Hester, Representative Ballinger, who has announced that he is running against Brian King for state senator. Representative Ballinger is partners with Travis Story, who is defending this lawsuit. Representative Ballinger gave money to Ecclesia. So what are they trying to hide? I mean, all we want is a little transparency. Just show us the document. And
it's because
they don't want to do that.
Yeah, they're
so
they're saying.
Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We are here with Pastor Iverson Jackson, who will be on the campus of Arkansas State University at 7:30 tonight, giving a speech about One Nation Under God. We're also joined now, as you can see, with the chair of the Arkansas State Republican Party, our Arkansas State College Republicans. Hannah Webb is back with us, who, this is her second time on the program. She came on first time with the Conservative Future segment. Hannah, welcome back.
Thank you. Always nice to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what went into the idea behind having Pastor Iverson Jackson here.
Well, I'll tell you, and he doesn't like to be bragged on, and he likes to stay behind the scenes, but I have to thank Representative Sullivan for this. He's been instrumental. Our goal this year as college Republicans in general is we have a unique opportunity in that it's not an election year. And most college Republicans look at this as kind of a bad thing because we don't have people asking us to volunteer for their campaigns all the time. But we're using this as a way to better ourselves, like our downtime to better ourselves. And so this year we're focusing on ourselves, gaining momentum on campus, getting exposed to the community and things like this. And so Representative Sullivan has come in and empowered us to do what we want to do and to help make this difference. So he introduced us to the idea of having Mr. Iverson come. And once he explains what his message is, you can't say no to it. You have to have him come on. So he's been very instrumental in just being that connection for us and getting us to do very cool things like have Mr. Iverson come and preach his truth to us tonight and be able to get that message on our college campus in general and to be able to get support for your local college Republicans because we desperately need our community to help empower us, and this is one of those ways that we need y'all to come out and support us. If nothing else, just come for us.
Yeah, well, and I'm told, back to Pastor Iverson Jackson, I'm told that this information is what you're not going to hear in school. So if you want to if families want to come out tonight, it's free. Admission's free. And so, we don't hear about this idea in school anymore.
No, you don't. And that's what you have to do. That's part of the whole plan of the, how could I say, the opposition. And that is to take over the school systems, the education systems. Our education system, first public schools in America, 1647, and those schools were started. They wanted all the people educated so that they, number one, could know how to read the Bible, and number two, be good citizens. Isn't that remarkable?
Wow.
And so up until just a few decades ago, that's what we were doing. And when we stopped doing that, we started having really bad schools. And so we've had 200 or 300 years to prove that it works, and a few decades to prove that when I say it, I mean being one nation under God, students being taught how to read the Bible and reading the Bible and following the Bible, that works. And that's why we have, you think about the fight to get the 10 Commandments out of the public square, and we look at all the catastrophes that are happening in schools today. There's one commandment in there that says, thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
What if every student knew that and followed that? Then we wouldn't have all the tragedies that we're having in a lot of our schools today.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not steal. Kids wouldn't be killing one another for cell phones and tennis shoes and things like that. So it's just that simple, being one nation under God and getting back to that principle that the founding fathers believed in.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's very, very powerful. And of course, I wonder though if they keep, like you said, they're pushing 10 Commandments out of public life. When do they go for the Supreme Court and they actually take down the 10 Commandments that are on the building? That's that just kind of exposes the fact that we are not the same as we used to be.
Then you have to ask the question, Paul, what are they afraid of? What are they afraid of? Because you have to get God off the scene in order for the other opposition, if you will, agenda to be pushed forth, and that is to control every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And under God, you can't do that.
Yeah. It's this concept of, okay, so the more you push God out of public life, okay?
Correct.
The more immoral we become,
Yep.
okay? And the more immoral we become, the less laws we follow. And then...
And the more laws we have.
Yeah, because then they come down to try to manage the immoral population. Yes. And what's so dangerous about liberty in this concept, how it all goes together, is that if you look at technology now, we're fast having the technology that where we could enslave ourselves, put a camera in every room. I mean, so the stakes are really high when you think about it in those terms.
They are. And we cannot afford to sit back and just say, well, I'm just not going to get involved in politics. You're involved whether you think you're involved or not. Last year, before the election, I was talking with a group of pastors, and one bishop, he said, well, I just don't want to get involved with politics. I just want to preach the gospel. I said, well, if this other individual gets into office, you may not be able to, because she said that churches will have to give up their deeply held religious beliefs. So you won't be able to preach out of Romans chapter 1 or some of the other your favorite verses to preach. And so if you don't get involved, then you won't have the liberty that you have right now to preach the gospel.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I had some family members who, they did not vote for Hillary Clinton. They voted for Donald Trump, and their number one reason was they were just like, well, religious freedom, we really do believe that is at stake, with the Supreme Court alone, but just statements like
everything
that.
else that comes about. So we have to be diligent. This freedom was given to us at great cost. And as you said, you at your grandfather's flag in here, who fought in World War II. So you have a heritage also to uphold. Yeah. And so what are we going to leave to our children? That's what we have to ask ourselves.
Absolutely. All right, so Hannah Iverson Jackson is going to be in at Arkansas State tonight at 7:30. Admission is free. It's One Nation Under God. Bring your friends, bring your family. You're not going to hear this in school. Hannah, I'll give you the last word. The chair of the Arkansas State University College Republicans. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're thrilled to have Iverson. We thank him for coming. We thank Representative Sullivan for being instrumental in getting him to come. And so the community, please come do your part. Please empower us. Please give us the hand up. So come out tonight. Bring your friends. Bring your family. I would appreciate it. My college Republicans would appreciate it. And I think you'll appreciate the message that he's going to bring tonight.
Yeah. And the way that parking works, folks, when you get on campus, you just go into the parking garage, and that student union is connected there to the parking garage. It's on the 3rd floor. It's a really nice facility. I appreciate it. Iverson, it's great to have you on the program for the first time.
Thank you, Paul.
Very much. Love what you had to say. And Hannah, it's always good to see you as well.
Thank you very much.
Folks, we're going to take a break. Back in just a moment. Going to wrap things up.
This is ASA News, The Parrot. With breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. I'm Bob Maloney. There are reports circling around from politicians who are in the know, and the same phrase keeps being used. That phrase is new revenue generation. Let's go to our reporter on the ground from the Capitol, Haley Hogwash. Haley?
Thanks, Bob. Yes, it seems the more politicians I talk to, the more I hear the phrase new revenue generation. We're trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you can rest assured it will be good for the people of Arkansas.
Haley, it certainly sounds like something good. I like how the phrase uses the word generation. That makes me think this has got to be doing something positive for our children in the future. Haley?
Yes, Bob, some new developments. I've just been speaking to some people who are here and are not politicians, and they tell me the phrase new revenue generation is actually code for a new tax.
Oh, my. Well, if this is true, Haley, that would add to a growing list of new taxes that have barely made any headlines at all, so it's best not to discuss them here on ASA News, The Parrot.
Yes, Bob, I know it's sure to make government officials angry that their phrasing of the new revenue generation has been changed by the people and called a tax increase.
I would expect an announcement from Mother Government soon to set the record straight. What is the new tax? Revenue generation, Haley?
Well, this new tax, a new revenue generation would add to a growing list. First, there was a revenue generation on movies, books, and songs that people download using the internet. And next, there was the tax increase. The new revenue generation on all purchases made using the internet. And now I'm told this new revenue generation is a tax on the people's patience.
I realize the people don't like it, Haley, but specifically, what is the new tax? Revenue generation.
No, Bob, I'm telling you, according to the activists here at the Capitol who have gathered and are listening to some radio broadcast, the revenue generation is literally taxing the patience of the people of Arkansas. I'm told the less patience you have with the government
better not tax our patients.
the more they will tax your patience and the more money you will owe at a later date. I'm also told the collection method on taxing your patients will be decided in a newly formed multicolored ribbon task force.
How taxing.
PHP Parody.
Bob Baloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a blue ribbon task force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a blue ribbon legislative task force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who is deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. PC Rights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. PC Rights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. And I want to thank State Representative Dan Sullivan for putting on this event tonight. I want to thank Pastor Iverson Jackson for stopping by, Secretary of State Mark Martin, and Hannah Webb. It's always great to have a bunch of people in studio and just able to talk about the issues. My point on. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm glad I got their response on it, and I appreciate the optimism just about this concept of editing history. And, Joe, you feel free to chime in here too, but I really do believe from the standpoint of, what Secretary of State Martin said that they're able to recognize injustice. That was the whole premise, that they're able to recognize injustice. They just don't know how to reconcile not being perfect. And the idea, the question is, do millennials, you're a millennial, Joe, for sure, do millennials recognize themselves generally as flawed people? Or do they just recognize the past as being flawed and they're the ones that are going to fix it?
Okay, so I definitely agree more with the second point than the first one in that case.
Yeah.
But I also think that millennials have generally, I want to say generally because not all everyone's this way, but generally they've been basically told that they are right a lot, or that
those participation trophies.
Exactly. So since that has been perpetuated throughout most of their lives, that anyone who says they're wrong or holds an opposing opinion is clearly not right. So it gets very belligerent to a point, or at some point.
Yeah, there's not a lot of debate. There's just immediate dismissal of everything that person is to their core.
Yeah, because if you're told you're right all the time, and then someone basically points out where you're wrong or a hole in your armor, so to speak, then you immediately become defensive and go, "No, I'm clearly right. You're wrong because my position is my position, and I've been told that I'm right about this. So therefore, you're wrong if I'm correct."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So to be clear, and look, I think recognizing the injustices of the past are healthy. So we learn from them, whether it's the slavery, Civil War, whatever the case may be. But so you're on. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what you said earlier, when you gave, is it one thing or the other? It was the second thing. I'm trying to remember exactly what the first thing was.
Yeah, the first thing was, okay, are the millennials also, by admitting that history is flawed, they're recognizing that they don't stack up either? And I don't think that's the case generally.
No.
Because if you look at the social justice warriors, they are very quick to point to,
and that's why I think what your second point was way more accurate, where you said that they recognize the injustice of the past, trying to fix it today.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
And they will be the ones to do it.
Yeah, we will be the ones to do it. It's kind of like, and that's their rallying cry is, we will fix all of the injustices of the past.
Right. And it's not as simple as, okay, it's one thing to see, somebody who needs help and to help them. Okay. Yeah, there's some, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, works of good works, service. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about trying to perfect man. Okay. And and that's what I think their ultimate goal is, because there is no way they are trying to apply standards of history or today's standards back then. I mean, you show me any civilization back during the discovery of America that wouldn't that any civilization that outpassed technologically the indigenous people of North America and South America by far. Okay, we had gunpowder. They did not. Period. End of sentence. Right? Name me one civilization that would have discovered the land and been like, "Oh, let's share." There's not one civilization back then that would have upheld those standards. Not at all.
Exactly, considering most civilizations back then were in the game of expansion.
Exactly, and so what they're saying is well, we stole the land, or they stole this land. Well, all land belonged to somebody else at one point. I mean, how far are we going to go back? A lot of people don't realize Mexico stole land from Guatemala. Is Mexico going to give that land back? No, they're not. That's just all land always belonged to somebody else.
Native Americans constantly fought over land with each other.
Yeah,
like they were constantly redefining.
They were
where their land began and ended because they were warring over those lands.
And so, what they are doing is they're trying to, and I don't know if it's conscious. Some of it is conscious, but they're trying to destroy civilization today in some weird attempt to perfect what they think they can build for themselves, and that they will fail miserably if they ever succeeded at attempting it, which I guess they are succeeding at attempting it, but they're going to fail miserably because you can't. It's just like, there's no piece of paper that can be signed by any president that's going to keep people from not doing bad things. And on that point, how do you decide what's a bad thing and what's a good thing if you don't have a supreme, infallible moral standard in Creator, in God Almighty? And you can't. You don't. And that's the whole thing is, show me anywhere in nature where it's just I didn't really mean to go into any sort of apologetic concept here, but I mean, there's nowhere in nature where morality exists naturally. It's something. It was a standard that was given to us. If you want to look at the text of the Ten Commandments, or you just want to, the concept of right and wrong, it doesn't exist, and it's not our natural state. You don't, and it's just biological. You don't have to teach I'm never going to have to teach my daughter how to steal. I'm not ever going to have to teach my daughter how to lie. She's 3.5 months old, and I can already see it. I already see she is, yes, dependent, and yes, precious, and yes, adorable and cute, but she's fallen.
Yeah. So
you try to take the milk away from her at the wrong time, and you see a very self-interested person at 3.5 months that a lot of people maybe don't recognize.
You were talking about you don't have to teach anyone how to steal, but okay, so just to help with that point, my sister, she's 25 now, 26. When she was 2 or 3 years old, I've heard the story many times. My mom and my sister went to this is going to be a really dated statement. They went to the Piggly Wiggly down the road from my house.
Okay.
And
are Piggly Wigglies not around anymore?
For the most part, no.
Okay. Piggly Wiggly.
So they went down to the Piggly Wiggly, and they were going to go buy some groceries. Well, my sister had picked up a bag of Skittles and not said a thing to my mom, and just started eating them and walked out of the store with them. My mom realized that she had Skittles. My sister had, at 2 or 3, had stolen a bag of Skittles and not known what she had done. Like, it's not, she didn't think anything about it because she didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. But you didn't have to teach her how to steal. She just did it. Granted,
you think she knew she wasn't supposed to do that?
I'm not sure.
So you eventually get to the point where you're supposed to tell the truth and you lie. You're not supposed to steal, but you'll take that. I mean, in kindergarten, I remember stealing a kid's crayon. You're like, I really like that crayon. And when he's not looking, you just take it, and it's just yours.
That's the thing. It's like but still, you didn't have to teach my sister how to steal. Like, even though she didn't know she was stealing, she still stole from Piggly Wiggly. You didn't have to teach her that.
Right, yeah. It still applies.
That's what I was getting.
You have to teach her not to do those things.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to teach her, hey, you can't do that.
You gotta teach people not to kick the kid on the playground or bite the kid on the playground.
And this goes back to what Pastor Iverson Jackson was saying about the school system. I mean, if you're not teaching people that they are say what you want to about prayer in school, say what you want to about the Ten Commandments. These kids, my parents and my grandparents were being taught that they were going to be held accountable after death to what they were doing today.
Or if you're not going to teach that, at least teach them that they aren't perfect, that they do make mistakes, and that they will have to live with consequences of those mistakes.
Of those mistakes, yeah. But yeah, and you see how if you had said, well, we're going to get rid of the Ten Commandments, we're going to get rid of prayer in school, and at the same time you did all that back in the 50s. Whenever the Supreme Court decision was, at the same time that you did those things, if you were to also say, oh, we're also going to give everybody a participation trophy and teach them that there's no, people would have said, whoa, that's ridiculous, that's too far, because even after that, the residual effects of, there were still standards, and kids were expected to meet those standards, and if you didn't meet those standards, there were unescapable consequences of that, but not anymore. I mean, it's just so different than it ever was. Hey, let me leave you with this great piece of Arkansas news, or an interesting piece of Arkansas news. And by the way, Iverson Jackson's going to be giving this speech, One Nation Under God, at the Arkansas State University campus, third floor of the Student Union. You just park in the parking garage, go in. Admission's free. Bring your family. You're not going to hear it in schools. 7:30 tonight. Admission is free. So certainly check it out. Before we run out of time here, I want to circle back real quick, and I want to talk about this story back on October the 18th, the headline, Noel Oman, general revenue for roads a no-go, Arkansas governor says. Now, we covered this. This was, a lot last week, but I want to direct your attention to a couple of weeks ago, there was a survey that Conduit for Action put out. And it was shared widely across a lot of people in the state. 64% of the people that filled that survey out said they supported using existing revenue rather than raising taxes and fees for our roads. Again, the people, I think, given the choice, would agree with this statement. We are already giving you money to do these things that government's supposed to do. What are you spending your money on that's causing us not to have good roads? And we know what the answer is. They just won't stop spending and committing and expanding welfare programs, committing future resources to welfare programs, and they're going to raise your taxes. Mark my words, they're going to raise your taxes. Patreon.com/thephp if you want to help support the program and get extra content. It is patreon.com/thephp. Our weekly Wednesday video will be out tomorrow. Arkansas, thanks for listening. Be safe.